This at least works now if anybody comes back. Hello? I'll wait a few seconds to see if anybody comes back. All right, we got somebody back in here. I've had some audio issues. We make sure that you can hear me. All right. It is working. All right. All right, we're making some progress. I know there's a few more people who are on the other one. The people in the chat, were y'all on the other stream that we just cut off? All right, perfect. I'm gonna give. Okay, just join. Okay, so I had some audio and we had to cut off the other stream, and now we're getting, I guess, some new people in here. Anyway, we'll get going. Hopefully, they'll find their way over. Had a little technical difficulty. I'm gonna put my email in here in case anybody wants to shoot over. You can put questions in the chat. I already have a handful, but you can also send them to this email or follow up with that email, and I'll keep an eye on it. Let's see. All right, I've got that email up if anybody wants to send questions. And that way, if you send it to the email, you can send it to both, but that way I'll make sure I get to it just in case. We run out of time here. Sorry for the late start. I want to see, I've got some questions that were submitted. Some of those might be from people who were on the other stream that I couldn't get to work. So if anybody on this chat has any questions, y'all just go ahead and pop them in there. But I'm gonna start working through some of these questions. I kind of organized them a little bit, starting off with some LLC stuff. So one of the questions, first question I got is where to file an LLC. You know, sometimes you see online about these different states like Delaware and Nevada, Wyoming, and there's some really popular states. But the advice on that is pretty simple. You want to just file wherever you live. And the reason is that if you file somewhere, and sometimes these are like sales pitches, like a company wants you to file in Nevada, and then, well, you got to file in your home state as well. So I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. So if I filed in Nevada LLC, I still have to get what's called a certificate of authority. So I have to still do the same filing here in South Carolina. So it's double the work. That's why some of the companies push it. And there are some reasons. It's not totally made up. There's a lot of real estate tax advantages from using some of these Nevada, Wyoming LLCs, but for online service, coaching, selling products, none of that really matters. So you want to just use the state you're in. You want to keep it simple. You also want to make sure that you're good in your state because those are the laws you're relying on. You're relying on your state's LLC protection to protect your personal assets. So you don't want anything to mess up between what some other state's doing in your state. You want to be good with your home state. So we always recommend just keep it simple, file in your home state. As a short FYI, there are reasons you use these other states. It's usually real estate. There's some real estate tax advantages, and then it's also if you're raising money. So let's say I've got the next Uber, the next big idea, and I'm trying to get people to give me money. Well, few of them know what South Carolina's laws and case law and the history of it are like. So being in Delaware, they're familiar. If they're going to give money, you're trying to be attractive. So a lot of times you're setting up some sort of corporation that's good at accessing money and accepting money, because if I'm an investor and I'm throwing money all over the place, I'm familiar with a couple states, how they treat shareholders, what their laws are like, and now you don't have to learn something new chasing me. So it's really just an attractiveness play, and there are some advantages, in those states. But a lot of these states have good, healthy LLCs. and laws that protect them. All right. We got a 10 or so questions. So y'all pop in any new ones that you see in there. Hopefully our other friends have made it. Looks like some people are coming in. Another question that I got a few times is about non-competes. I just did a YouTube about how to understand your non-competes. And so the context of that is usually, um, can I start my side business if I have a non-compete? And that's something I'll give a little bit of guidance on how you interpret that right now. Um, but this is something that's very customized. It's important that you understand it though. So here's your first thing you gotta do is go find your non-compete, see what it says, and see if what you're doing in your side business is competing with your company. So one of the fears you might have is that, let's say you start your company and it's a side business and then it grows and grows. If it's similar or the same and you have a non-compete and you're building this, they're going to say you're building it on company time with company resources and could argue they have some sort of ownership on it. So you want to make sure that you're not doing any work during time where you're being paid. You want to make sure you understand whether there's a non-compete that applies as well. And then our recommendation generally is that you take these things head on, meaning don't live in the shadows. If you're leaving a company, let's say you're leaving a company and starting with a competitor, or you're starting your own company. So you're starting your own company and it's the same thing. I would go to your supervisor, your best, whoever you have the best relationship with, and say, look, I've always wanted to run my own company and it's come time and I'm excited about it. And then talk to them. Because if you don't talk to them and they see you come up, they're going to assume that you poached every single client, you emailed bad things. They just assume the worst. So if you take them, talk to them and you can kind of disarm them. You'll also learn really quickly whether they're going to try to go after you or not, which is important information. So don't run from those non-competes. Make sure you know what it says. Talk to your, employer. Talk to anybody. If you're getting hired by another company, show it to them. You want to, it doesn't go anywhere. So you got to address it at some point or another. They're certainly overused. There's some legislation to try to knock them down a little bit. Each state's a little bit different. Our state, even in South Carolina, is pretty hard on them, meaning they're hard to enforce. So you usually have some options. What I would tell you to avoid doing is trying to take clients, solicit employees. You're trying to not poach your current employer. That's when they start to go after you, when you do things like that. If you leave and go compete, yeah, there can be mean, aggressive employers, but that's really not the spirit of the non-compete. The spirit of the non-compete is to protect the business, as it is, and let the employee leave, and try not to take resources or clients. So if you're mindful of that, you can really get away with it a little bit better. All right, we got a new question in here. I'll come back to my list. Anytime y'all pop one in, I'll try to jump on it. Okay, this is kind of a privacy question from Crystal about using a fake name. Um, some of this will depend on the state you're in. So the owner of an LLC is private. It is only in the operating agreement. Like in South Carolina, you go to the Secretary of State and it'll say drafted legal LLC, manager managed, when it was formed, and then that's it in terms of setting it up. Except you have to have a registered agent. That is the person who gets the mail. So you can use a company if you're trying to keep it private. You can use a company to be your registered agent, and then you don't have to. There's no public record of who the owner is. Now, if you're getting sued or something like that, that you can subpoena all these documents. There's this new beneficial ownership information that the government passed, which I'm not a fan of, but it doesn't really matter. We have to do it anyway, and you have to give the government, the federal government, financial crimes unit, you have to submit this now, every new LLC, and then every existing LLC now has to do it by the end of the year. And the penalty is $500 a day. The information is supposed to be protected, no different than the IRS protecting our individual information. So we trust that will happen. But you should be able to protect your identity without using a fake name. My concern with using a fake name is, well, then you don't actually own it. Who owns it? How do you report um, how do you report income from it? So I would look at other ways to kind of keep, it'll depend on your state, but to keep your name off of it. A lot of times you'll find that, like my business, my law firm, my name's on it. So there's no reason to hide anything. With drafted legal, my name's still on it. There's no reason to hide anything. If I own rental property, I might do that. Something like that. If you really have a reason for privacy, you can certainly do that. You want to go look up on your Secretary of State, and you can email me what state you're in. I'll show you where to go, and it'll show you the public information that's there. And it's usually, if you can get your registered agent to be someone other than you, and like I can send you some companies that'll do that. You pay them a couple $100 a year, and they forward you the mail. So that's your best way to do it. And then you have an operating agreement. But again, nobody sees that operating agreement. That's a private document. About that agreement is between the owners, and even if you're just one owner, a bank might see it. So I would try to get it in your real name, but with your identity protected. There's probably more nuance to that question. So feel free to email me if you want to pick that up later on. Another question we got: do you recommend online services to register a new business, and also legal advice? I get you mean a new LLC? Yeah. So it's a good question. It's a judgment call. Depends on what you currently have. The conventional advice is to keep businesses all separate from one LLC to another. For example, I'm going to use my law firm and drafted legal because they're two separate businesses. So they have different incomes and expenses, and they have different liability exposure too. So if something happens at one, I don't want the other one to now be implicated. So when you're separating a new LLC, you're really making it clean on yourself to make sure you understand the income and expenses and how well it's doing. But you're also cutting off that liabilities. So liability is protecting you personally, but it also can protect between the two businesses here. So if you have two different LLCs and something happens with this one, well, you can't sue this other one. Now, if it's one LLC with different businesses in it, if something were to happen, then you can eat it all up. Now, let's say, for example, you have a consulting company, and then you also sell maybe a digital course under a different name. Your exposure on those two things are not terribly huge. And even if there's different branding, you could probably have the same LLC. But if one of them has some liability exposure, meaning someone can sue you for some sort of harm or injury or financial, losses, then I would cut that off with a new LLC. Usually it's going to be, if you're by yourself, it's going to be passed through. So it's not a ton of extra tax cost if you're using a CPA. It's just another LLC, and you report your income on your individual taxes. That's a little bit out of my realm, but it's not, shouldn't be cost prohibitive in terms of doing it. But it does add paperwork, and it adds a little something to it. It's another LLC out there. So I hope that gives you a little bit of guidance. I can't really tell you exactly which way without knowing the two businesses, but if you want to shoot me, put that email up there. You want to shoot me a little more, I'd be happy to, try to pick up on that and guide you in the right way. All right, another question I got was: is an LLC legally required? Well, the answer to that is no. There's very few legal requirements when you're starting a business. Most of the actual legally required is, you just start your business on most of them, or if you're regulated somehow. So usually there's going to be some sort of business license, and then if there's some sort of licensing, like I'm a lawyer, I have to be licensed as a lawyer. But also, like in our state, personal trainers, there's some sort of licensing you have. But think about builders, therapists, things like this. There's that type of licensing. But if you're outside of those, it's really, you just need your, in terms of legally required, your business license, which comes either from your city or your county, or if you have parish or whatever it's called, your local, the most local government that you live in, and you just Google that and see what you're supposed to do. That's something everybody can figure out how to handle, and you can reach out to them, email, and there's some sort of department, and that's just your local government trying to get their hand in on some sort of fee. It's not usually exorbitant, but that's what's required. Now the LLC is, I'll recommend it all day. It's just such a good benefit, and it's not very expensive. So if you're in a business trying to make money, you're interacting with other people that could sue you. The LLC stops it from getting to your personal life, your furniture and your cars, and yes, even your homes. Now there's some protections on that, but the LLC is just it can give you peace of mind, and it helps you create something in and of itself. So potentially you could sell it one day. It could have its own trademark, its own contracts, and then it's you're building a business that is running itself and can be sold later on. Um, the okay. The LLC, if the lower LLC is sued, is the holding company also liable? That one might be. I'll give you a quick 2 cents. I'll tell you, if there's a lawsuit over injuries, something like that, everyone's going to get sued. The point of the LLCs can help you, move it out later on. But I'd have to know the nuances of that. It depends on probably the type of lawsuit. If it's some sort of, it's probably above injury or tort. Somebody was negligent, and let's say they were building something and did it falsely, and a beam fell on somebody's head and paralyzed them. Everybody's getting sued, and whoever the license was is probably still going to have to account for it, LLC or no LLC. One example I often give is, just because I have an LLC doesn't mean I have a free reign to, somebody's in my office and I punch them in the face or something. I'm still liable for that personally. So it doesn't protect me from just any and everything. So there are exceptions, but in theory, it would be that LLC for debts and liabilities of that LLC alone. If you're thinking that you can throw a bunch of LLCs to hide everything, they need to be real businesses with a real purpose, because you're going to have to stand in front of a judge and say, well, this is separate because, and explain, what's going on with the businesses. But yeah, the liability should not always flow kind of vertically, but it would depend on each circumstance. Absolutely. That's a good question, because a lot of the LLC is worried about exposure and stuff like that, liability exposure. Let's see. Another question we got was, what do we do about someone stealing our content? It's a really good question. A lot of content providers, content creators on here. I'm one myself. And there's a couple of tools that you've got to be able to not prevent it, but to be able to address it when it happens. So, what you see a lot of is like a fake Instagram account with all the same stuff on it. You might see somebody rip off a digital product, digital course. You might see some blog kind of cut and paste. And so you got different tools to address that. One big one is a trademark. The trademark, so you're going to hear trademarks and copyrights. Trademark is the one that protects the brand. Drafted Legal is a trademark. Drafted is a trademark as part of that. Nike is a trademark. The swoosh is a trademark. Just Do It. It's about who you are buying from. So whenever you have that trademark and someone takes your content and tries to use it on some platform, you can go right to that platform. Like Instagram wants to have the authentic account. It doesn't want to have fake accounts. So you can go right to them, go through their processing, and show them your serial number on your trademark, and it will help them, empower them. They're your ally, to decide very quickly, like, oh, this is the real account, and we're going to shut it down very quickly. You can also do that to web providers, and someone's stealing your account, your digital course. You want to have an arsenal of documents showing this is all mine. Mine all relates straight to me. We have it. I've had to use it before, and it's been effective. You don't want to be in a situation where you're suing that individual. You want to be hearing about it and shutting them down. The reason is they're probably not even in the US, probably don't have access to sue them, and you're probably never going to find them. They're probably just on the internet scamming people and scamming people. So, those are your tools, the trademark and copyrights. So, copyright would protect you from like plagiarism. But if you have a great idea, some habit hack that nobody's ever used before about waking up or exercising, that idea is not actually protected. How you present it is. So I can't cut and paste your article, but I can say, oh, that's a good idea, and it's a little gray on how some of that works out. But the copyright rules just protect the exact copycatting of it, not like, hey, oh, I'm gonna learn about this idea and kind of mess with it a little bit, make it my own. Not a whole lot you can do about that. And you see entrepreneurs, Pat Flynn, I'm on his newsletter. He just talked about this, about how being a good content creator and connecting with your audience, and prioritizing your community and your brand and always innovating. Because I mean, the reality is the copycats eventually lose out. They're just going for the short-term gain. So you're always going to outcompete them eventually. So your goal is to be able to shut them down quickly, and that's how you use some of those legal tools like trademarks to do that. Another question we had is about insurance. What type of insurance? This depends on the type of business you're running. Some of them don't need it. I would always get a quote just to see. Here's how the insurance operates. So that your LLC is kind of the end all to protect you personally. I think of it as your conduct, how you're working with your client. It's kind of your first guard. You're trying to be straight with them, trying to be, fair to them, treat them right, be clear, and that's going to help avoid a lot of problems. You have a really good agreement that sees around the corners, which is, why drafted legal exists, is to try to see the pitfalls and be really clear about them with your client. So when you push comes to shove, you've kind of already addressed it, and then you have recourse there. And then if there's some sort of injury or something that makes it through there, you've got insurance that steps in to cover you. You're usually talking injuries and stuff like that. If you're in health and fitness, personal training, nutrition, any of that, you're going to want to get insurance, because the type of injury can often be, catastrophic, $1 million kind of lawsuit stuff. You obviously don't want that. But if there's some reaction that someone has, or they do something incorrectly, you may still win on it, but you don't want to have your name on a lawsuit that you don't have coverage for. That is for sure. So you're usually just looking for like a business liability coverage. There's, where they'll cover these kind of like torts, and there's something called errors and omissions. Ours is called malpractice. So if I'm representing a client and I mess something up, a big one that people have is you have 3 years to file a lawsuit from known injury, and if you miss that, the whole thing's out. It could be a $10 million case, and so if a lawyer misses that, well, they're going to get sued for the value of that case. So you have coverage for things like that. Not required, but it's a good idea. Um, so let's see, for startup business, do you recommend using a law firm or using service like LegalZoom? Can you give us a ballpark cost? Absolutely. I'll give you the exact cost. My recommendation. So the answer is no, you don't have to have a law firm. That's the whole reason for drafted legal. Is what draft is trying to do is do a better job than what's being done out there, closer to getting lawyer level advice, but it's not as tailored. You're not, working with a lawyer and paying hourly rates. So most law firms run off of hourly rates. We're no different. We have different levels of rates between associates and partners and paralegals, and they range from $400 an hour to $175 an hour. And that can go pretty quick for a conversation, researching. And the reason it's expensive with law firms is that malpractice reason I just gave you. It has to be done 100% correctly, no matter the type of business, size of business, how many people are involved. I think you're probably, if you're talking to get basic legal startup stuff with a law firm, you're looking at $1,500 to $5,000. $5,000 would be more if you're trying to get like risk management documents, like client service agreements, um, your website terms. That's why we just basically bundle all those in there for drafted to be like, here, this is what you need, put it in place. In terms of online services, very much think you can go really far with those. We think ours is the best because it's got the best customer service and lawyers are involved with running it. And we're still very connected. It's not, there aren't shares being traded that maximize profitability. It's still, we're very connected to helping business owners. We started a business. We love working with business owners. But absolutely, registering an LLC, you got three options. You can do it yourself. You can use someone like Drafted, LegalZoom, and they'll file it for you. You basically input the information, and someone in their office will file it, and you'll get the paperwork. Or you can hire a law firm, and you just talk to the law firm, and they'll go handle it for you. You never think anything of it. If you're using someone like the other onlines, they're gonna, it'll be, there's a lot of upselling, which can be a little annoying. The registered agent is one thing I would look out for. They're going to kind of get you into the registered agent, which is fine if you use it. If you need it, it's really helpful. But if you don't, it's going to be like $200-300 every single year, and it just happens annually. If you're the face of your business, like I am, I'm my own registered agent, so you can save, $1,000 over the course of 5 years by being your own registered agent. I'll put a link in the at the end on how you can get an LLC from Drafted. And if you email me, I'll see if we've got any codes we can help with taking some percent off on that afterwards. But definitely would early on, we understand you're trying to spend money on your business, not on legal stuff. So that's a good way to do it correctly, because you don't want to ignore it, but you don't want to spend too much for it. I understand that. I hope that was helpful. Let's see. For this marriage, this means you're married and you're about to get divorced, like legally divorced using divorce lawyers. If so, I'll give you, here's this will be mostly based on what South Carolina is. So in South Carolina, we're a common law state, and you're going to have to figure out what yours is. Meaning, me and my wife, everything since we've been married, every bit of income or assets we've created together is both ours. Doesn't matter if I have an LLC with just me on it, me and somebody out there's all of the assets we have created or debts are the same. So putting it just in your name does not always solve the problem, or solve the concern here of whether this would be marital property or not. You may be able to get some sort of an agreement. This is probably a little bit more of a divorce lawyer question for someone in your state, or or it'd be hard for me to give you too much more advice on that. But just know there is some concern that you could build this great business, and there will be another, there would be a claim that it's marital, and your spouse would have to be compensated for that. So I would at least look up things in your state to see how it does. Somebody asked, do I need a lawyer to start a business? I'll touch on that real quick again as we, kind of coming towards wrapping up. Is the answer is no. That's the whole point of Drafted Legal. We help, I've got hundreds of business clients, and they're, calling me with big time lawsuits. That's what you need the lawyers for. Now, if you're putting a lot of money into your business, here's what I'll say. You need to do legal stuff day one. You need to have an LLC, in my opinion, day one. The minute you're interacting with anyone trying to make a profit or provide a service, you need to have that liability protection, and you need to have contracts. Those two things you just need to have day one. They're going to make your life a ton better. They're going to make you look more professional, and they're also going to make you think about the problems. So, like, if you look at one of Drafted's templates, it's going to make you think about something you probably didn't think could go wrong, because we deal with stuff that goes wrong all the time. Now, you don't need to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars with a lawyer to protect a business that doesn't yet make money, but you do need to get LLCs and contracts. And so I would do those. And once you're like, let's say you're living on your business, it's your primary income, I would start building that into your budget. You're going to sleep better at night. And, if you do it preventatively, it can go a long way. we get used a lot here. Somebody will just call me just to run something by me. We're not in a lawsuit. We're not really in a dispute, but it's a tricky situation, something with an employee or contractor or something, and we'll just kind of brainstorm it a little bit. They're getting a second opinion. Eventually, that's the type of business and the type of relationship you want to have with your lawyer. Someone who's there to kind of they understand your business, they understand your personality, what you're looking for, and so it can be a real asset. But we don't want you overspending on legal fees until your business is there where it's worth protecting, worth getting the trademark, worth having a legal look at it and just making sure everything's put together. Certainly does give a lot of peace of mind to know you're doing it correctly and avoiding as much as you can. Um, and then, all right, let's see. I'll give a little bit of parting advice if anybody has any other questions. Just piggybacking on that. So I have two kind of buckets of advice for you. The one is day one, LLCs and contracts. I just gave you my opinion on that. The second one is really important. It's who you work with matters a ton. Um, there is no amount of legal protection you can possibly get to make the rich, angry guy go away. So you have to trust your intuition. I have a client right now who, is doing management on property for this rich, angry guy, and they had a falling out. Um, Her agreement was done before I was hired. Once the dispute happened, and it wasn't very good. And now we're like 2 years later into this relatively minor lawsuit, and she's having to pay a lawyer to we have hearing after hearing, and this guy is just almost he's just out for her. And she, it's her, I guess, probably her biggest regret. She's like, I knew it, but it was so much property and it was such a good opportunity. So just be sure that you're working with people who are aligned with your personality. You will make them happier and you will get a better result with them and you will lead to more and more. Now, is it difficult to do that while you're starting a business? Yes. But just hear it a little bit. If you are having, don't be scared to take on something difficult, but be cautious of taking on someone that's difficult because can suck a lot of your time and it can uh, hurt how you serve the people who appreciate what you are providing. So, uh, pay attention to who you're working with. Now, that's your team members, that's your clients, that's all these people. You want to be as aligned as you can. It's not a perfect world. You're going to have some tension and some struggles, and that's fine. But people who are really not aligned with you, people who are, just trust your intuition there, and then make sure you get the LLCs and contracts. Anybody who has an immediate contract need or LLC, email me. I'll shoot you a code to take some percent off and make sure that you're getting what you need. And happy to point you in the right direction or talk to you if that's what's needed. Otherwise, I hope that was helpful. It's my first time doing it. As you could tell, I messed the audio up, and we'll probably do it, every few months. But anytime anything comes up, y'all reach out because we're trying to do the best job we can. We run businesses, and so we have, a lot of good vibes trying to go towards people learning how to start their own business. It gives you so much freedom financially and time wise. I've got 3 little boys at home, so the most amount of time I can spend at home and flexible is, the better my life is. So we're really trying to help be a good resource for y'all.